I'm Bensette, founder of the Bossy Babe brand, fitness coach, and serial entrepreneur turned intuitive life and business coach. The Wealthy Babe podcast is for the ambitious, courageous, and spiritually charged up woman in network marketing, craving wealth not only in her bank account, but in every aspect of her life. Get plugged in here each week for authentic and unfiltered conversations from myself and industry leaders who are going to support you and give you all the juicy behind the scenes and real talk around business, spirituality, strong points of view, and doing shit differently. This is a safe space to come undone, be heard, and be given permission to rewrite your own damn rules. So here we go. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Wealthy Babe podcast. I am so excited because today of our series is the very first interview that I'm ever bringing you on this podcast, and I couldn't be more honored to be sharing space and to be bringing you and introducing you, if you don't know her already, which if you know me, that's probably crazy. You probably know her. But I'm bringing you one of my best friends, my most dearest friends, one of my business partners, Olivia Seline. And I am so freaking excited that she is going to be sharing today all on femininity, sex, pleasure, and having a strong marriage. This whole series has been centered around being able to receive abundance, receive wealth, and being able to tap into these spaces is such a beautiful way in order to receive in your business. And so I thought nobody would be better than Olivia to be talking on this topic. So I know we're both a little nervous because this is going to be fire. It's going to be juicy. It's going to be amazing. But I am just so excited to bring you her. So if you don't know her already, her name is Olivia Seline. She is co-host of Soul in the Raw podcast. She is also a life and business coach who has a huge heart for mentoring type A spiritually curious entrepreneurs that refuse anything less than a badass relationship and a badass bank account. So welcome. If you could see her, she's like throwing up the peace signs. I love it. So welcome, and thank you so much for being my first interview and just walking through fear and walking through fire with me and just sharing in this journey. You've been a part of this ever since I've been brewing this up. Oh my gosh, for how many months now? We've been talking about this for a long time, and so oh my gosh, I'm just so excited that you're here.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me. It's so funny that you're like, well, we're both a little nervous because I think the only reason is because we both have such a heart for this, and we have this idea of, right, you want it to be perfect and you want to have all the right words come out, but messy action always wins, and whatever needs to come up, whoever is listening to this right now, our hope is that you're able to take even one piece away from this, and we know it's going to be exactly what you need to hear. So thank you, Autumn, for having me. Congrats on your baby being birthed, which is this podcast, not her actual human baby that's coming down the road. But like, you're birthing,
not yet.
Oh shit, I'll put it back in. But birthing this podcast and like doing the damn thing. I know we've been talking about this for months, and it's so cool to be able to see it. And I am completely and 150% honored to be your first interview. So yay.
Oh my gosh, I am just over the moon. I cannot wait to dive in. I am so excited that you're here, and this is going to be so amazing. This is going to be a very unfiltered conversation. And so I hope that you feel like you're just like in the same room having coffee with us and, you know, just chilling out with us on the couch and being a part of the conversation. That's ultimately what we want here. So just to jump it off, just to start it off and just have a little fun. You're like, oh shit, what is it? I promise you it's good. It's good. What is one thing that you're celebrating right now?
What is one thing that I am celebrating right now? Damn. I mean, there's a lot. I know that both you and I are really tuned into celebrating thanks to our coaches that we're both working with. And we're in this like incredible family tree. Like your coach is my coach's coach. And then there's you and me and like this perfect family tree. And it's all about the celebrating and the pleasure and the luxury and bringing that into the everyday. So that is something that I practice all of the time. But right now I am celebrating. I just wrapped up another round of my 7 days introducing spirituality into business course that I run every now and again. And I just wrapped it up. We did a celebration call last night. We had champagne. We talked about like what they felt like coming into the training, what they felt like leaving. It was so fun to just hear the awakenings and the breakthroughs and the aha moments that each of these women experienced. So business-wise, I would say that, as well as just having like a rock star June. June was friggin' incredible. July is off to an even better start. And getting to work with the most badass women just gets me really excited to celebrate each of them as I sit down with them each day. So I'm loving it.
Yes. Well, I'm celebrating here with you. I
Yeah.
actually, you guys, I got mad at her like 30 seconds, like what, 30 minutes ago? Because she's like,
Yeah, she did.
I did. She's like, yeah, I'm booking more clients and I'm having all these consultations and her business is just freaking killing it. Like she's doing amazing. And I'm like, dude, where was my text? Like, why are you robbing me of the high vibes? Like,
Oh my God.
I,
No, but we're here having them now. And it's just honestly like you guys, it's just funny because you have to just remember like to celebrate each thing, each and every client that you sign, each and every consult that you have, each and every Facebook message that you get and email that you get and all of these things. Like this is all growth and it's so cool. But I mean, your cat has been sick and then it was my birthday. And so I was celebrating that. So it was funny because Autumn and I sat down and I was like, hi, do you remember me? I'm Olivia. But we normally meet like a few times a week and hang out and talk and make sure you have that person in your business, guys, that you can go to and celebrate all the freaking things with because it's so much more fun that way.
a freaking men. Like I could probably stop my whole topic and like talk just about this with you.
But yeah.
Like there's so much that we could jam out on this topic about, but we're going to stop right there because
All right.
we're going to stop right there. So can you tell or share why, for anyone who may not know, why you felt called to coach women and entrepreneurs in not only their biz, but also in their relationships?
Yeah, absolutely. For me, you guys kind of, I guess, where it all starts, not from when I was birthed, because that would be the longest story ever. But I really brought relationships into my business and my coaching in, God, the last like 4, 5, 6-ish months. I have always been really passionate about relationships. My husband and I have been together off and on since high school. I mean, obviously, we went through like the whole high school breakup. He went to college, that whole drama. But that was 11 years since we went on our very first date. And then we got married very, very young. We've been married, it'll be 7 years in January. So we've been together for a really long time. We've seen a lot. We've been through a lot. We've grown up together. It's been really incredible in this insane journey. But I never thought or felt like I was qualified to talk about relationships because I was like, well, we haven't been through anything crazy. Like we've never necessarily been on the verge of divorce. We've never had any crazy dark seasons where it was like we didn't see the light at the end of the tunnel. Like we have open communication. We check in with each other. Yes, we have fights just like anybody else. Yes, we had a really rough year in 2016 after he got out of the military before we got back in and him trying to find his purpose and all of that. I mean, it was a very dark year for us. But I never thought like, oh, well, I don't have I don't have any big, crazy, long, insane story or big moment that happened. So I'm not qualified to talk about it. But when I started working with my one-on-one coach that I've been working with now since April, we started talking about it. And I realized like, she's like, you light up when you talk about relationships and what it means to rock your marriage and rock your business and why you think that divorce, it doesn't always have to be the answer and why you have these really strong points of view on marriage not having to be complicated like everyone seems to make it. And she's like, you just light up when you talk about it and it's effortless. Like, why aren't you talking about that? And I told her like, I don't feel qualified. And she was like, well, let's change that. Like, let's start talking about it. So I started preaching on it and talking about it and digging into it and all of that, relationships in general, communication, love languages, sex, intimacy, passion, all of those things as well, and started teaching on it and fell freaking in love with it. I think that how we show up to one thing is how we show up to anything. So if your marriage or your relationship is on the rocks or you're not showing up fully with your spouse and there's things that are not full there. It's like something feels broken there or you're ignoring it or you're pushing it to the side because you just need to start your business and you'll get to your relationship one day and then it falls away or it leads to divorce or it leads to disconnection. I don't think it has to be that way. I think that your marriage and your relationship is a huge freaking piece of you. Absolutely huge piece of you. And if that is off, you're absolutely going to show up into your business being off, even if you feel like you're faking it till you make it. People can feel that energy. So I want women to know that they can have both. You don't have to sacrifice your marriage or your relationship to have the rockin' business. You can have the badass bank account. You can have the badass business, all the success that you want, but also have your man there or your woman there, your partner there to experience it all alongside you. And you have to do that now. Not like, oh, well, in 5 years when I have the 6 figures, then I'll get back to my relationship. Your relationship might be gone by then. You got to start, working on that now. So that is where, I guess I just saw that for me to be true. I was very easily putting Joe off and to the side a little bit when I first started in business 4 years ago. And I was just like, well, I'm doing this for my family. I'm doing this for us, babe. Like I'm doing this for us. And he was like, you're on your fucking phone all of the time. Like, I can't take it anymore. And I just realized, like, damn, doesn't have to be this way. And so since I've lived that, I've overcome that. And I feel excited to talk about that. That is what I am really teaching and preaching and sharing right now. So there's my holy moly long freaking story. Short.
Oh my gosh. No, that is like, I'm sure that there are so many women right now that are like nodding their head while they're driving their car, and they're like, oh my gosh, I feel you on such a soul level. And I think that's one of the things that me and you actually connected about really deeply, very quickly, when we connected the first time, was about a lot of the sacrifices that we made in our relationships when we first started business and we first started in like network marketing initially, and this thought that you had to sacrifice, like you had to sacrifice your family, you had to sacrifice, you know, TV, you had to sacrifice self-care, you had to sacrifice everything now so then you could reap the benefits later. And I completely resonate, and I've talked about it in some of the previous episodes, that there was a day, and I'm sure I think you remember that, maybe there was like a time when there was actually 3 days where I spent it not talking to Derek, because it was like that last straw. Like there was just so many times where I put my business ahead of him, and I would sit on the phone all the time, and I wouldn't actually honor our relationship. And he was always waiting around for me. And at a certain point, people are like, well, I don't want to be in a relationship with like myself. Like I don't want just to be with in a relationship with someone who's just sitting on the couch next to me, but I actually cannot converse with them. I can't have connection with them.
Right.
And they're always burnt out. They're always overwhelmed. And I'm just this person at the other end of it, like picking them back up every single month, telling them it's going to be okay. So I love that you're talking about this. I love that you help other women with this. I think it's such incredible work. It's so important work. And I definitely noticed a lot shift for you when you owned this truth and you kind of just stepped into this, because there was a time when we were talking about this before you started working with your one-on-one coach, and before you kind of actually decided, okay, I'm going to take the leap, I'm going to own this, I'm going to go all in on this and help women here. I remember you feeling so resistant and kind of nervous about this. And then the second you're like, I'm just going to do it. And I'm done with the waiting game. I'm done waiting for someone to give me that permission and that validation that I'm ready. Everything shifted for you in your business. Everything shifted in your life. Like it was almost like all the cards like started to fall together and all the pieces started to come together. And I think that's the perfect example of alignment. We tend to resist that thing because we feel like someone has to tell us like, hey, you're ready, you're good enough, you can do the damn thing now. But really, we are the only one that can give us validation and permission. And usually that thing that's scaring the shit out of you is the exact thing that you need to do, because that's what's going to put you into alignment. So I know that I'm just really proud of you. Like I'm proud of the work that you're doing with these women, because it's like, if you don't know her already and you go and see it, you're going to see how like amazing it is, and how many shifts these women are having just by being in her energy and learning from her. So
thank you. And it's true. Like these things that we avoid, or we think we're not qualified or whatever, like if it lights you the fuck up, then go out there and preach it and share it and talk about it. Like, yes, there are women out there that teach on relationships that had to go through, much darker times than I did in order to like overcome that obstacle and share it. And that's beautiful too. But there's other women who maybe aren't in those darker times, who are in like a, an okay, like mediocre marriage. And that's kind of where Joe and I were at, where we're like, where things are fine, things are good. And, this just must be how it is once you're married for a while. And like, things, you're just kind of coasting along. And then we tapped into like this next level. And that's where I was like, oh my God, I need to share this, because it doesn't have to be this like dark, huge overcoming thing. And this like, 100%. Beautiful, like I came back from this type story in order for you to be successful. Those are beautiful too. And those people are absolutely successful as well. But if it is something that you've gone through, even if it seems small or mediocre or minuscule to you, to someone else, they're like, oh my God, thank you. Finally, someone that's sharing where I can resonate, because that's my story too. So I just know that if you're out there waiting for that permission, like take this as your sign. You should light the F up when you go to post and when you go to share and when you go to coach the women that you're working with. And I know for me, yes, business lights me up, but it comes into play with how they're showing up in their sex life and their marriage and for themselves, that I think plays a huge role in how they show up in business. And so I like to kind of look at it as this whole two pieces of the puzzle. So yeah, well, thank you. That was so sweet.
Well, and that's so powerful. Like, I hope that if, obviously if you're listening, you probably have a business, but I hope that you
Hello, welcome.
But I hope that like you can you can actually pick this apart and kind of recognize what she's doing here. It's like that's so powerful because you know who you're speaking to, right? You're not trying to be everything for everybody.
No.
You're just recognizing like, hey, there's this like little this missing piece in the market. It's not about helping the people necessarily that have the massive problems in the relationship that are on the brink of divorce, you know, maybe who have gone through these really, really, really dark times. I want to help elevate the relationships that are already okay to like amazing. And you just want to take them from this one level to the next level. And there's a space that needs that. And that's who you're trying to serve. And those are the women that are connected to you. And that's why it just makes so much sense for you. Like it works so effortlessly.
Oh, that's such a beautiful way to say it, of like elevating. And you can do this, guys, like in health coaching, you can do this in business coaching. Like it doesn't have to be this like rags to riches story every single time. It can be something that was a turning point for you that seems small, but was like the defining moment for you. And that's, I guess, where I started to realize like, you know what, I do have a space to speak here. Like I have watched so many of my friends you know, leave. And I know you and I have talked about this before, like, you know, get divorced, or, you know, they break up, or they leave them because things start to get like kind of mediocre, and like, oh, the honeymoon phase is over, and you know, whatever. And there's always a time and place for divorce and separating. And I completely respect that. I mean, there's definitely times and things that happen that maybe that is your next best step. But I just started watching, it just is so common. And I watched a lot of people that got married at the same time Joe and I did. And it's more common in like people that I see them leave or get divorced or whatever, and these things. And it's a lot of times has to do with because you're more masculine in your business. So you bring the masculinity home, or you're hustling in your business and you keep telling your spouse like, oh, well, one day. And they're like, I don't want to freaking wait anymore. Like I can't do one day. And I even watched that happen. It was a huge aha moment for me. One of my parents' friends, he has worked his entire life and he was getting near retirement. He always told his wife, like, once we're retired, we'll move away, we'll get the cabin, like we'll do the thing and we'll have this life together. Well, she actually died like really unexpectedly and just like I think it was a heart attack, and she just passed away like while he was at work. And now they don't get to have this like life of retirement, and he is beating himself up like no other, because he's just like, I kept telling her one day. And now we don't get to have that one day. And I get chills thinking about it, because it's not, you guys, we have to stop putting it off. It's not about tomorrow or the one day. Like you need to make your spouse or your partner feel loved and appreciated and valued now. And your business is just a piece of your life. It's just a leg of it. It doesn't have to be your entire life, even though you love it. So that was a really powerful aha moment for me, and something that I was like, I have to preach this stuff. Like I can't wait any longer, you know?
Oh my gosh, no, I honestly, like, I couldn't agree more. And that just gives me chills. Like I start welling up, because when you think about it in hindsight, like we make these decisions all the time and we say, well, one day, like you're mentioning, and that day necessarily doesn't always come. Like we have to look at it and say, you know, today is the future compared to a month ago or a week ago or 6 months ago. So if you're not going to do it now, when are you going to do it? You can't keep waiting for one day. We are not guaranteed tomorrow. We're not guaranteed a month from now. So putting off the things that you truly want to do in your life, you know, if that moment passes and you get to look back on it in hindsight, do you want to remember that you did it? Or do you want to remember you saying, well, one day? You regret is the hardest thing to live with. And so it's important, because you don't want to wake up one day and then realize you don't have any more days left, whether that looks like the separation that it led to because there was just so much resentment and resistance in the relationship that you just couldn't go back on it, or, you know, unfortunately, you know, maybe you lose them or they pass away or that time just runs out. And I think that's so powerful. I think that's such an important story, and I hope that, you know, everybody who did listen to that can say, wow, like you're right, and puts that into perspective for them, so then they can go home and, you know, get it on with their man or get it on with, you know, their spouse and say, you know what, I'm going to start changing things because I can't wait for one day. You're important to me and you're that main priority. And then starting to see basically what we're talking about, right? Is starting to see how showing up really strong in your relationship only benefits you in your business, because they're going to support you so much stronger and you're going to feel more lit up. It's not something where there's this resistance in the relationship because every time you talk about your business, they're annoyed and upset about it and frustrated because they're like, is there anything else to this relationship other than your business? And, you know, so it gives them that power back. So how have you seen the correlation between receiving pleasure and having a strong relationship and receiving more wealth and abundance in your business? This is juicy.
Did you write that down? This is juicy?
No.
I was like, oh, side note, this is juicy. I love that. Okay. So Oh, damn. Well, in all honesty, this really started to come into effect for me. Like I'd say right around like, when you and I started talking and then as I started working with my coach, but how you receive one thing is how you receive anything. If you can't receive pleasure, and not even just like intimately and like in terms of an orgasm, but even in terms of receiving a compliment and someone tells you, oh my God, your hair looks so good. It looks so good. And you're like, oh my God, really? No, it's so dirty. Or, oh, well, yeah, it's because the girl at the salon did it. Or like, oh, this old thing, like, nah. And you can't receive a compliment. You feel uncomfortable with it. But how you receive one thing is how you receive anything. If you can't even receive a compliment, how are you going to receive that client that's going to pay you at $1,000 a month, right? It's really being aware of that. So I really started to notice this in, money blocks. I was noticing money blocks a lot. And I was like, why am I not bringing in what I want to bring in? Like I'm doing the things and I'm showing up and I'm being consistent. I'm doing whatever. But it's honestly like I wasn't receiving compliments. I wasn't even allowing myself to surrender in the bedroom. I wasn't allowing myself to experience pleasure there. I was very rarely having, and I know you and I have talked about this, very rarely having an orgasm because I was so focused on what's next, what else is on my to-do list. And I was looking at it as almost a chore or another to do because that's just the business mindset. And when I couldn't even receive that, it's no wonder I wasn't receiving money and clients in my business because I was so turned off there. And once you kind of tap into that receptive energy and you tap into that ability to receive pleasure and that orgasmic energy, which you guys, orgasm just means like the ability to receive pleasure. It can be, you can have an orgasm basically like not sexually, but like you could even be eating a piece of chocolate and having this like orgasmic, sensation with it and feeling and experiencing the pleasure and all of that luxury within it. And if you can't do it, if you can't receive it in the bedroom, you can't receive it with clients, you're not receiving compliments, like you're blocking your ability to receive, which comes from the feminine energy. Nothing to do if you talked about the masculine feminine energy on your podcast yet?
No, not yet. So dive right in wherever you want to go.
Oh my God. I'm like, okay, this is like a whole like 18-hour training we could do. So very briefly, basically the masculine feminine energy has nothing to do with like male or female. It has nothing to do with gender at all. Everyone has masculine and feminine energies within them. And the feminine energy is the very soft, gentle, the ability to receive, the orgasmic energy, the kind of floating through and just feeling and experiencing sensation and all of these like desires. And that's the very flowy energy. The very firm energy is your masculine energy, which comes very easily to me. That is the one I tend to be heaviest in, which honestly, most female entrepreneurs, we tend to be heavier in our masculine, which is the get shit done energy. It's the doer. It's the follow through. It's the analytical one, the logical one. So it was very easy for me to be very masculine in my business, right? Like Melanie always talks about the boss. I was the boss at work. But what was happening is I was bringing the boss home in my marriage and in my relationship versus tapping more into my feminine energy. And then what was happening was I wasn't able to receive pleasure because the receiving pleasure portion comes from our feminine energy. She's the being, not the doer. So it was very obvious that I was treating my relationship as I would normally treat my business, and I was hustling. And until I learned how to balance the two, and I was able to tap more into that femininity, that feminine energy, that flowy, tapping more into self-care and receiving pleasure and doing these types of things, that is when I tapped into that receptive energy, that ability to receive everything. And that is when, once I've kind of worked there, and I'm still working on that, absolutely, it's like a muscle. You got to work every day. I have been able to watch, like, it literally was like the key to abundance. It was like once I tapped into that and I kind of surrendered in the bedroom and I allowed myself to be fully present with Joe and I was focusing on my ability to receive there, I was able to bring that into business. And it was like, it literally was like a light bulb. It was crazy. And I watched more clients come in and more money come in. And it's just been this really crazy journey of it. So that was a lot. So feel free to take whatever you want from that and we can digest it more. But I don't know where you want to go with that because holy shit. But
no, that was honestly perfect. That's exactly where I wanted you to go with it. And it's funny because they're talking about like orgasms, but I'm like, I know that exact moment for you.
Oh my God, I know. Oh yes, Autumn and I literally, it's so funny. Her boyfriend one time was listening to us talk on voice text and like, what were we talking about? That exact text message. And he was like, you guys talk about that stuff?
Oh yeah.
Oh, it was like morning bangs and shower.
Yeah.
Autumn was telling me that she had sex in the shower that morning, and he was like, "You guys talk about this stuff?" And
Welcome,
because
you guys.
I told you, I was like, "Oh, I don't really love morning sex. Like, I need to get better at that." And just for some nonsense.
Welcome to our life.
Hello, welcome.
There's no filter. But no, like I love this topic, and I'm so happy that you actually touched on the masculine, the feminine energy. I wanted to ask you about that in between there, and then my head kind of spaced on it, but it's so true. Like I show up the same way, and that was a big switch in our relationship too. And again, it's still something that I'm working on. I mean, I've been super transparent, super open with you about that, about, my feminine energy, and being able to tap into that in a space of pleasure versus just a space of creation and flow, and, being able to like honor myself. It's like actually being able to receive pleasure. And it comes back to this connection in receiving love. Love and money are so correlated. Abundance and love are so correlated. It's the same thing. And it's being able to receive love. And I think as women, whether it's from the notions of society, or it is, the limitations people have put on us, or it is maybe a situation that happened in a relationship at one point, we tend to block ourselves off from love, and we wear this badge of honor with selflessness and like not wanting to receive. I talked about this, I think, in one of my earlier episodes about like this badge that we wear about being selfless and just wanting to help and do it for other people, and we don't want to receive anything in return. And this is what turns it off. We're like, well, where's the money? Why aren't the clients coming in? Why am I not receiving? And at the end of the day, if you can't receive love, if you can't receive pleasure, if you can't receive, feeling really good about yourself, even just down to a compliment, how are you going to receive a client who's paying $1,000 a month for you? How are you going to receive, a $10,000 month? How are you going to be able to receive that level of love if you can't receive it on a low level? So I love that you tapped on it. I think that was so freaking juicy. So good.
Well, and I know for Joe and I, like, this was a big deal because, okay, so women, right? Like, we are hustling in our business, which hustle can be beautiful, but you also have to make sure to balance it with flow, which is that feminine energy, right? So you've got the creativity and the inspiration, and then you've got the days where you got to get shit done. And I remember like bringing this like boss mode home. And so I was hustling so hard at work that I was trying to like hustle at home, and I was basically stripping Joe of his masculinity, and he wasn't having any space to step up and be the man. And this caused a lot of disconnect in our marriage because both energies are beautiful. They need to balance each other out. They're like two sides of the coin, and they flow together. They work together. But what happens when you take a magnet that is two of the same sides and you try to put them together? They're like, like going opposite. Like they're not linking together. They're not able to connect. And so what was happening was Joe and I were both masculine energy in the relationship. And what was happening there was we were completely disconnected. There was zero polarity there, and we weren't able to balance each other out. We were just super, super heavy in the masculine. And so what happened was I couldn't receive because I was so tapped into my masculine that what would happen was he would try to initiate sex, or he would compliment me, or he would try to touch me, and I would shut him down because I was in my masculine. And I was like, oh no, like I got shit to do, or I got things to do, or whatever. Or I would be like, oh, like I'm icky today, or oh, I look bad, or oh, I haven't showered. And I shut him down so many times. And literally I asked him, because I ran a training on this, and I asked him like, babe, what was the thing that changed for us, like as the man's point of view? And he said, well, here's what happened. Like, you were so intense. Like, basically, you took my balls away, and I was not able to be the man. And he's like, every time you rejected me, you wore my confidence down over time. And I'm sorry, but in all honesty, I didn't want to have sex with the woman that was taking my confidence away. Like, I didn't feel confident in front of you anymore. I had to kind of like hide behind the scenes and kind of shrink down in order for you to be happy. And I wasn't able to be confident there. And then we just didn't have sex. We just were not connecting in that way. And so it was such a hard thing for me to hear, but it just reminded me like, damn, like, I have to be aware of that. And more women need to be aware of that our man wants to be wanted and needed and valued and appreciated and acknowledged just as much as we do. And if you are shutting him down every time he's trying to compliment you or initiate something or do something for you, eventually he's just going to stop. And then you're pissed. And then you're like, well, it's not like it wasn't back in the day, but it's because he stopped trying because you're not receiving. So we really have to tap into that, receptive energy, which a great book for this is Feminine Genius. Friggin' incredible. And the book Pussy. I know we're both reading that right now, you and I.
Yes.
So freaking good. So
It's
Sorry,
so
that
good.
was like a total side tangent.
No, that was good. I need to listen. I need to go read. I need to get Feminine Genius, because that's like one of the next ones on my list. I'm reading Pussy right now, and like three other books.
I know. I read like 8 at a time.
I usually read one at a time, but this time I'm just like, I can't wait to dig into them all. Like, I just need to get in. So no, that's so important. And I can relate on so many levels of being that masculine energy, of being like, actually, no, like I have work to do. Actually, no, I have this message to get back to. Actually, no, I have this. And then of course, eventually they're like, well then, like, I'm not going to initiate anything anymore. Like, why would I continue to do that when I'm just getting shut down, when your business is more important than our relationship? And then you start to see this disconnect in the relationship. And then there's this like, what's the right word? I mean, yeah, it's a disconnect, but it's resistance. And then you're like, well, what's wrong? What's off? And then you start feeling really anxious, and like, you have to have this conversation. Then it, like, you have a fight about it, or you have an argument, and it like just blows up a couple of your days. And then of course, then it's like you can't even plug into your business. You feel disconnected. I mean, I've worked with clients before who had so many struggles in their relationship. Like, every day it was something new, and they could not show up for their business no matter what they did, because they couldn't solve the problems in their relationship. And that is, it's so important to be able to heal the space and to stop sacrificing that and to make it a priority, because it does reflect in how you run your business 110%.
So, how you do anything is how you do everything. And you know, your spouse is there to be like your best friend, your biggest fan, your supporter. And you know, if he's not feeling supported and loved and acknowledged and wanted and needed, and you're not receiving his love, like you had talked about earlier, then that does cause resistance and resentment. And eventually, unfortunately, a lot of times that leads to separation and to divorce. And I get so fired up about it, because I just watch so many people like give up. And like I said, there's time and place for everything. So if something happened, if there's abuse or, you know, infidelity or anything like that, like, my heart is with you. And I know you have a very unique situation, but I've watched a lot of people in the online space where it wasn't that. It was simply that their business became the number one priority, and their marriage or relationship fell apart. And it kills me, because it doesn't have to be complicated, but it has to be a priority, and it has to be a focus. Just as much as you focus on your business growing, you need to be focusing on your relationship growing, and you're either growing together or you're growing apart. And so if you can make it a focus and a priority for you, and know, yes, that there are going to be some really shit times, and Joe and I still go through shit, and we still fight, and we still argue. There's still, you know, dry spells every now and again. But I've realized, like, wow, like when I show up fully in my marriage and my sex life and my relationship, it is so crazy how much easier and more effortless and more flowy I'm able to show up in business and freaking crush it. And it just amplifies everything, and it's so good. And I want more of that.
Oh my gosh, yes. So could you potentially pinpoint a moment or a conversation, pinpoint a moment or a conversation or something that sparked the thought and the notion and just knowing how serious it was for you to realize that sacrifice in your relationship and in your marriage would no longer work, when you just like couldn't continue to put your marriage and yourself on the back burner to bring in that success that you wanted in your business?
This is a good question. And I shouldn't speak this into existence, but I always say I have such a terrible memory. So I'm like trying to think back, because I know it happened like back for the first time, probably back in network marketing at one point, because I remember like that was the network marketing way, like sacrifice everything now. And, you know, Dave Ramsey says like sacrifice now so you can live later, and like all of this bullshit. I mean, I love some of what Dave says, but I mean, we're also like not totally friends on a lot of things that he says, but that's okay. So I'm trying to think, like, I don't remember back that far, but I know that it took a moment of Joe having a really like honest conversation with me and kind of snapping at me. Unfortunately, it kind of got to that point where it just kind of happened, you know, and he's just like, put down the fucking phone. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And he had let it build up, you know, we didn't have a conversation about it. So he exploded. And you know, he loves me, but he's just like, I am so sick of the cell phone. And that was a really big kind of defining moment for us. And I just realized, and I guess like that story I told you about my parents' friend, like I just realized like, what is this one day, you know, that we're all waiting for? And I just don't understand like what the point of that is. I don't think you have to sacrifice. I think you can have this and that. I think you can set boundaries and have priorities and really make sure that you are focused on all of the pieces of the puzzle that make you happy and all of the pieces of the puzzle that make you feel successful and allow you to show up fully in those versus, well, right now I'm going to sacrifice my relationship so that I can show up fully in business. And then later I'll sacrifice my business so I can show up fully in marriage. Like there's no someday. The day is freaking now. And all that more money and more clients does is amplifies whatever's going on already. So if your marriage is falling apart and you're glued to your phone, more money and more clients doesn't solve that. It doesn't make it better. It doesn't make it go away. You don't reach a level where all of a sudden you don't have problems anymore. It just amplifies the problems and the hurt and the pain that is already there. You now have more to handle and your marriage is more so falling apart. And then you have to decide like when is enough enough. And so for me, I just took it back. I said, F this, like I want to focus on my marriage and I want to focus on my business. And I am changing the story and I am believing that I can have both. And I set boundaries. I refocused my priorities. I had conversations with Joe. I had conversations in my business. And here I am.
Oh my gosh. Can we just quote that?
Yes.
That was literally, that was everything. And I think that's important for, the listeners, the women who are listening to this to know and to recognize, because I think I know I have thought this at one point or another as well, is that when I reach that certain income level, rank, status, whatever it is, okay, well then I'm going to have all the time and all the money to do all of the things, take care of my relationship, take care of myself. But just like what Olivia said, like, here's the thing, it's that wherever you are, it's just going to amplify it. So you have to imagine it and you have to think about yourself. If you're struggling at, bringing in if at $100 a month you're bringing in right now, or say $200 you're bringing in a month right now, if you're struggling to make your relationship a priority right now, you're struggling to make yourself a priority right now, how the hell do you think at 6 figures you're going to be able to manage your relationship and to manage yourself? You're going to have more clients, more responsibilities, more things to work through, more things to delegate. You're going to have so many more things going on that it's going to be freaking impossible for you to handle that and to actually live the life that you want to if you do not take steps right now to put those pieces in place. We talk about this a lot, is building that foundation.
Yeah.
You have to build that first foundation. You have to build the steps. You have to build the floor. You have to build all of the framework and have that strong foundation. So then when you do increase your income, you have the life that you want to. You can't wait, for the 6 figures to come and then think it's going to solve all the problems. It just amplifies, because if you're, I've mentioned it. I'm like, I could
mentioned it.
I could say it over and over again, but I think that you guys get the point. Like, it's how you show up right now is how you're going to show up when you have more money. So if you want a stronger relationship right now, you got to have the stronger relationship right now. You have to be more confident in yourself right now. Yep. You have to make the investments in yourself right now. On any single level, you have to do the things right now if you want to see it also play out at a higher level. The money's not going to solve the problem. It just amplifies the good or the bad, whatever it is
100%.
You're at.
Yeah. Well, and if you're stressed out and overwhelmed and burnt out and run down in your own marriage or your own relationship, and that's the energy you show up with in business, then guess what you're attracting? Like, it's all of that lower vibe, lower frequency bullshit, and people that can't afford to pay you, and, low engagement, and people aren't excited about what you're offering, because people can sense your energy, you guys. I think we always forget that. At least I tend to sometimes, where people literally can feel when you're typing or when you're on live video or when you're on a sales call. They feel the energy that is there. And if you just had a blowout with your husband right before this about how you guys are completely disconnected and you're not having sex anymore and you're not taking care of yourself and you're a crying mess, and then you go on a sales call, there's only so much faking it till you can make it, which I think is freaking bullshit. But there's only so much of that you can even do, where you put on a brave face and power through. And I get it that there's shit that happens in life and you kind of have to do that a little bit, but you ultimately attract the vibration and the energy and the frequency that you are right now. So if you want more clients and more money and more success and more whatever it is that you're craving, more happiness, more joy, more peace, how can you embody that now so that you can be vibrating there? And then that's ultimately what you're attracting.
Yes. Can we do a whole other episode on this? Because this
I know, now I'm like, well, shit, were we supposed to go there? I don't
Oh my gosh. No, I love that topic. And me and you could jam out. Oh my gosh. We could probably jam out on a million different topics.
Yes.
For an hour. Yes. So, okay, so why do you think, I know we kind of touched on this briefly, but I'm curious on your opinion on it. Why do you think it's so tough for women to receive, and what made the difference for you? What was that light switch that made you open and finally able to receive? I know you kind of had a conversation with Joe. Was there anything else that really like kind of just did it for you?
I think honestly, I think it's society. I think that it's just the culture that we live in. Like she talks about in the book Pussy, I think that we've been shut down and dimmed and quieted and silenced for so long that we've gotten so out of touch with our femininity, and that femininity is what is that receptive energy. And you're not able to receive if you're not tapped into that. So the whole like masculine hustle and, grind and grit and, go till your fingers bleed and whatever. And like, hustle now so you can live later and all that BS that, is preached to us, and that we watched, our parents work so hard, and they were always working, and they were always doing, and they were always going. And so it's what was embodied for us just based on society. It was what we've learned and what we've read and what we've watched and what we've listened to and what we've heard. And I mean, gosh, it's everywhere in the online space. So as entrepreneurs, we're like, yeah, like you guys have to hustle, like work harder, and you got to outwork everybody. And we wear busy as a badge of honor. So no wonder we're, completely out of touch with our feminine energy and being able to receive. For me, I guess the biggest part of being able to tap back into that was that conversation that I had with Joe, kind of that moment, but also starting to work with a coach on it. I mean, my coach has helped me, and now I get to help my clients, and I know you help your clients with this as well, being able to tap into that, what is their specific personal block around being able to receive. And so for me, we kind of started in sex, and we started in really being able to receive pleasure. And I know we first started where she's just like, go enjoy like a glass of champagne and, journal, or, next time that someone wants to give you a compliment, all you say is thank you, and I can receive this. Or, someone wants to pay you, you say thanks, like this is amazing, like let's freaking do it, and you stop apologizing for it. And then I brought it into sex, and I had a conversation with Joe, and we started to focus more on just me being able to surrender and me being able to turn my brain off. And so I literally would tell myself, like, turn your brain off, focus, like let the fuck go. And I was able to start receiving there. And then he deployed. So sad. And so then, I had my first self-pleasure practice, and that's something I worked on with my coach, and I was terrified of it. But when I was able to just release and surrender and be in that moment and be present and receive that from myself, it took my relationship to the next level. It took my business to the next level. It took my brand to the next level. It took me as a freaking human being to the next level. So I would say, maybe just journaling, maybe starting with journaling, like what comes up for you when you go to receive something? Like, what are you afraid of? What is blocking you there? And if you're not sure what that looks like, work with a coach, or, listen more to these kinds of podcasts, or read books, or do whatever work you need to do to work through it on your own, because, it's different for all of us. It's so different for all of us. And it's just something that's been turned off on us, and so for so long that we just have to turn it all the way back on. And that just takes work and practice and doing and being and all of those beautiful things. It's like an iceberg has kind of grown over, our being able to receive pleasure, right? And we just have to chip away at it, and we have to get back to turning it on and letting it breathe and letting it live out loud. And then it just kind of ripples from there.
Yeah. So I'm happy that you mentioned that, Joe's deployed. So for any of the women who are like listening, they're like, oh, that's amazing. But like, I am actually in a long distance relationship where my husband, leaves every few weeks, or he goes away for months at a time. How can we practice this? How can we become closer? How can we have a strong marriage and strong relationship? Because this is something that you and Joe have actually, and of course I know because I'm in the background with you, hearing everything, but like, I know you guys struggle sometimes with the communication aspect just because of the distance, but yeah, you guys have actually been able to make your relationship and make your marriage stronger in the distance. And I think a lot of people might hear that and think, oh, well, that's a roadblock. That's something that, that's a limitation. We won't, how can we make our marriage stronger when we have distance? It's actually causing problems more than bringing us closer together, especially when we're talking about pleasure. So you don't have to spend a ton of time on it, but is there anything that you can kind of give for advice on how or just tap a little bit into that, talk a little bit about that, how you've been able to strengthen, you and Joe, been able to strengthen your marriage while having so much distance between you guys for such a long time too. It's not like it's a month.
No, yeah, 9 months at a time. Yeah, that's a really good question. I think for Joe and I, the biggest thing has been realizing that, again, the whole sacrifice thing, we don't necessarily sacrifice for each other. I mean, we do in a little, there's things that have to be sacrificed. Like I can't go live in Minnesota because he's in the military, so we live in Texas right now. And there's times where maybe there was a month in the beginning of my business where maybe I didn't bring anything in, so he sacrificed some of his income to pay the bills. Like there's little sacrifices like that, but ultimately we're both so focused on our own happiness and our own fulfillment and our own purpose of what is it that we feel called to do, and then living that out loud and pursuing that with relentless pursuit and, relentless passion there. And we support each other in that, even if we don't understand it, even if it doesn't make sense, even if it's scary as fuck sometimes. He got back in the military and we just did the damn thing. And it's a hard lifestyle. It's not necessarily anything that I would choose necessarily. Like it's not the life I imagined for myself, but this is where he's meant to be. And so I had to figure out, okay, so how can I live my purpose and how can I tap into my passions and my fulfillment and still support him? And that was me starting my own coaching business and running with this the last 4 years. And he is so supportive of me. He's my number one fan. I am his number one fan. If there is any kind of resentment that starts to build or any kind of anything like that there, we have very strict policy to openly communicate about it and talk about it and bring it to the light. And that's been able to help us in those moments where there is maybe a little bit of resentment or anything like that. But also just, I think the celebration piece, like we celebrate the shit out of each other every single day. And even when we're far apart, but again, that kind of whole piece of just growing on our own. And I know a lot of women are like, well, what if my husband doesn't want to do that? And what if my partner isn't addicted to the growth like I am and wanting to go to that next level? I think all you can do is show him what that can look like and be that mirror for him, right? We as women are the muse, we're the inspiration. And, we're the ones in movies where the guys fall head over heels and we've got this like witchy, like magical vibe that like exudes from us and just like oozes out of every pore of our body. And we can like make men do the craziest thing because we're just that inspiration and that muse there. And so for me, when Joe wasn't into this back in the day, because he hasn't always been like, let's grow, let's be the best we can be. I just was focused on myself and I didn't try to change him. I didn't try to force him to read books or listen to podcasts or do whatever I was doing. All we can do is control how we show up, the work that we do on ourselves, what we learn, and then just start being that mirror for them. And they'll eventually start mirroring you over time. I know when I asked Joe to read the book Slow Sex, which you guys, if you have not read it yet, it's so freaking good. It's by Nicole something. And when I asked him to read it, he was like, okay, because what did it promise? It promised that you would have more sex and better sex. So he was totally for it. And we were able to have conversations about it long distance and we're able to talk about it. And it's been able to allow us to connect even more intimately when we're far apart, because we're so focused on growing and next level for ourselves. And then we bring that energy together and then collectively we can make our marriage and our relationship go to that next level.
Oh my gosh, so many parts of that I'm yes. The big part is, I think the biggest takeaway and side note, I actually mentioned to Derek, I'm like, we need to read this book together. Olivia and Joe read it together. Good. And I think he's like, oh, like light bulbs, like, we can't, I can't lose in that situation. But what really hits home for me, and I hope this is the nugget, I really hope that this is the nugget that these women take away, is that you have to be happy individually to be happy together. And I think Will Smith said this one time in the video. That is the game changer in relationships. If you're always, oh my gosh, this podcast is going in a million different directions, but that's okay. It's if you're looking for somebody else to validate you and to give you that permission to make you feel loved, to make you feel happy, to fulfill you, then you're always going to kind of feel like something's missing. You're never really in charge of your own life. You don't have that power. There's something missing. And being able to, just be happy on your own, that makes all of the difference in a relationship, because Now no one feels that pressure to have to show up to make that other person happy. You're two happy whole beings on your own coming together, and that is a space where you can celebrate each other and be happy for each other, rather than holding these expectations over somebody else and then getting silently mad at them for not living up to them. So yeah, I'm so happy you touched on that.
Well, and it's just, I mean, because that is so unfair to, and trust me, I've been there. Dear God, I've like waited for Joe to make me happy, or waited for him to figure it out. And it's not up to them to make us happy, and it's not up to you to make them happy. We need to, like you said, be happy, whole individuals on fire on our own. And then our energy and our noise and our love and our service and our purpose is just amplified when we're together and we're able to connect in that way. So I think that that's super powerful. And I think this book is a game changer for so many. And the truth is, like, your man just wants to see you happy. Like, I think we forget that too. We overcomplicate it. And she talks about it in the book, but like, your man, ultimately, when you are turned on and you are happy and you are excited and you are fulfilled, he's such a simple human being. Like, women are complicated, men are very simple. And it turns him on to see you turned on. It makes him happy to see you happy. And so when we're so focused on that and watching, like, you know, me tap into this, making myself happy and giving, you know, receiving pleasure for myself, it just turns Joe on more. And it's been able to amplify our marriage and our sex life and our connection and our intimacy levels even more, because he's just like, damn, like, I want more of this. Like, what can I do to have more of this? And it's me taking care of me, him taking care of me, him taking care of himself, like all of that.
Oh, 100%.
Goodness.
100%. I think, honestly, like 90% of the arguments that Derek and I have had over our relationship have probably become from him saying, Autumn, you need to take care of yourself. You need to do these things for you. You can't depend on, you know, something to happen for me to do the thing, because I would get so wrapped up in my business that I wouldn't care about anything else. And I would just expect him to kind of take care of things, or take care of the house, take care of me, make me happy, spend time with me. So it's like everything changed and everything shifted when I just started taking like my own power back, and I started showing up confidently for myself and talking good about myself, you know, just taking power in the relationship. He was like, oh my God, like, like, who is this version of Autumn? Like, give me more of her. So I think that's so powerful. And I think that's going to be a really important message for these women, because I think sometimes we do kind of want to put that on other people, and not intentionally by any means, but we want to be cared about and loved for, but you can also be cared for and loved for while you care about and love yourself. So what advice or tip could you give women receiving this permission for the first time to begin prioritizing their marriage and pleasure even higher than their business? So basically, like, where could they begin? Is it journaling, like you kind of mentioned before? Or do you have another tip, or is there like certain questions or things that maybe they could start to journal on?
Yeah. I think journaling is huge. Obviously, I know we're both, you know, huge fans of that. I also think something super simple is start taking care of yourself. I know a lot of times, like, our man comes home from work and we've been working our business all day, and we're in like a sweaty sports bra and yoga pants, and our hair's up in a messy bun that's super dirty and stinky for like the 8th day in a row, and we haven't put any makeup on. But then we'll go live, and then we'll like get all ready to go. But then we go on a date night, and sorry, my dog is crazy. And you're not taking care of yourself. So I think a huge piece that you can start to do now to kind of even strengthen things is take care of yourself. It's something super simple. It's something you're in control of. And then he'll take care of himself from there, and you guys just kind of amplify that. I think another piece is telling him what you want. I think that a lot of times we just expect our guys to know, like, well, he should know because I huffed and puffed after I said that, or because I gave him like 0 emojis in the text message, so he should just know. But like, guys, again, we're 2 different operating systems. They don't actually know, because it's not black and white for them. They don't live in the gray. So I think just starting to tell him what you want. And I think a lot of times when we're working our business, a huge mistake we make is we don't include our man in our vision. We don't include our marriage or our relationship in our vision. And so they start to kind of have this, you know, subconscious even fear that we're going to outgrow them, or that we're going to build this lavish life without them. And so I think it's really important to make sure that you are having that conversation with them and painting the picture of that vision of you guys together. So when I started really wanting to go to the next level in my marriage, I wasn't like, here's all the things you need to change, babe. Like, here's a list from A to B and C to D and all of this that you need to change. What I did is I started to say, like, here's what I long for us. Here's what I desire. Here's what I see for us. Here's this like fierce, passionate, fiery love and, you know, more sex and more time together and more deeper connections and all of that. And he was like, okay, cool. Like, I'm all in. And he was able to kind of see from there, like, how committed I was, where I was saying things aren't perfect right now and they might never be perfect, but I'm committed to you. I'm committed to growing together. I'm committed to going to that next level together. And my business is just a piece of that. And that was really huge for us too.
That's so powerful. Like that, how you just said that was so beautiful, Charlie.
Oh, thank
He
you.
looked like he was like flying dog there.
Oh, he's just like growling at something outside. And I'm like, what the hell are you growling at? Of course, at the very end of this.
Oh, that's okay. You couldn't even hear him. So,
okay.
No, I love that you mentioned that. I think you said that so eloquently, so perfectly, about, you know, just being committed to him and letting him know, like, hey, I'm not leaving you to the wayside. Like, we're in this vision together. I think, and I'm guilty of this as well. But there was a time where I used to say, and I still see a lot of women saying this, especially I think in network marketing, I'm going to retire my husband. And I'm going to bring my husband home full time. And I remember, like, I had this dream and I would say this all the time. And then Derek one day was like, dude, I literally cannot work at home with you every day. Like, I don't want to be, like, I don't want to be at home. Like, I want to have my own passions. I want to have my own purpose. Like, I want to do my own thing. Like, I love you. Me and him have worked together. You know, we've run a business together. We met working together because, you know, he was a chef and I was a server at the same restaurant. Like, that's how we met. Like, we have worked together 3 different times in our relationship. So it's not that we can't do it, but he kind of hit a point one day where he's like, I actually even if you could bring me home, I don't want to be home with you. Like, I want to get out of the house. I want to have my own purpose. I want to have my own dreams. And, you know, that led him to, you know, working in medicinal cannabis, and like, he's on fire in that space. He loves that space. And that brings him so much passion. And if I was ever to rip that away, like you were, you know, if you were to rip away military from Joe, it's like, there's just like a significance.
I tried.
Right?
I brought him home for 1 year and it was the worst year of our entire marriage. And I think that's a really good point. Like, there's another tip, you guys, like, let your man live out his passions and purpose just as he is giving you space to live out your passions and purpose. And I get it, like, wanting to bring him home. Like, are you kidding? I'm obsessed with Joe. I want to be like on him 24/7. I love being with him and spending time with him, but that's just not his jam. Like, he has a different piece in this world, a different part that he has to play. And so I think when you can support them there, for sure. So maybe just journaling about that, like, where am I calling the shots? Or have I even asked him, like, what is it that he wants? Or what is the vision that I have for our marriage and our relationship? And how can I step up? And how can I, you know, focus on my own happiness? Like, what is it that I need to be happy? What is it that I want? And starting to kind of have those conversations with yourself. And then eventually maybe you can start to kind of creep those into date night at the dinner table of, you know, babe, what is it that you want? Like, more than anything, like, what do you see for us? Like, what is this, you know, next level that we're going to hit together and all of that? And give him time and space to figure it out, because Joe gets really upset when I'm like, babe, tell me what our future looks like. And like, this came out of nowhere. Like, I need a day to think about this. Like, holy shit. So, you know, give them space to think about it, but just start journaling on what's blocking you here and what's holding you back here. And what are you expecting, you know, from him? And what is it that you want? And all of these juicy questions you can ask yourself and start to explore, and then communicate it with him over time, breadcrumb them. But
yes, I love that. And maybe if you're even listening, you're like, well, I'm not even in a relationship. Like, how can this apply? I think, like, going back to her tip about, you know, just starting to take care of you and focus on you and just honoring those qualities for yourself. That's whether that's, you know, you're in a season where you're like, I want to attract in a partner, I want to bring somebody into this mix, or you're in a relationship, you're in a marriage, and you just, you know, you need to start somewhere. Just start with you. And I think, like, I mean, all of these tips are amazing. Like, these are all freaking incredible. Go back and write them down if you haven't already. But, you know, I think you nailed that perfectly. So now this is the final question. You've made it.
I've made it. I'm like, oh my God, I just am such a rambler.
So this is the final question. Okay. The final question I'm going to ask all of the babes that come on this podcast is, what does being a wealthy babe mean for you?
Oh, I just got chills. I'm obsessed with the name of this podcast.
Yes.
Being a wealthy babe, I think the first thing that comes to mind is it's so much more than money and like physical, green in your bank account. I mean, although that's amazing too, and more money means more freedom and more opportunity to do more and give more and serve more and all of that beautiful jazz. But I think that's like the straightforward piece of it. Like being a wealthy babe is like, oh, you can make a shit ton of money and be super abundant. But abundance is so much more than that. Like, I think being a wealthy babe is just being the woman who has it all, the woman who every last desire on her heart and every last thing that she wants and craves and wants more of, she has it. And she's not afraid to go after it and get it. And I think it's, being a wealthy babe means you're balanced and you're masculine and you're feminine and you're able to receive and you've got the joy and the peace and the pleasure and the luxury and the fun and the play and the money and all of these beautiful things, are just like, I just picture her like with a glass of champagne and she's like, I don't know, like laying on a pool chair, like out at a fancy like hotel pool and she's getting served and then she's going home and having really like great passionate sex with her husband and then she's taking this like lavish bubble bath and, but she's also serving the world and she's traveling and she's giving and she's doing all these beautiful things and leaving this incredible, massive, insane impact and making the world a better place while she does it. So that was a very long answer, but I've never thought about it, but that's who I see as the wealthy babe. She's the woman that has it all, gives it all, loves it all, and she's doing a really damn good job doing it.
Oh my gosh, I love that. Do we share the same brain?
I mean, part of it, yeah, for real.
Oh my gosh, I feel like you just jumped into my brain and took like my exact vision out. Like that was perfect. I love that. So you made it. Yay.
I graduated. Level 2.
So now that, I'm obsessed with you, but I get access to you all the time. Where can our listeners, where can all the new babes who don't know who you are and have never connected with you before, where can they stalk you? Where can they find you? And just where can they learn more about you and your services and just get in your energy?
Yeah, well, all the wealthy babes can come hang with me. I'm on Facebook and Instagram, Olivia Seline. That's literally what it is. And on Instagram, it's at Olivia Seline. And then you can go to oliviaseline.com. And I've got all of my coaching info there. You can book a coaching consult if you want to chat more. Get all the details there. On the website as well, you can see that I have a free Facebook community. You can come hang out with us there as well. That is Millennial Business Babes Unfiltered. And then I co-host the podcast Soul in the Raw over on iTunes and Stitcher. There's 2 episodes a week at this point, and I love serving on the podcast. It's one of my favorite things to do. So lots of places to come hang out with me. I would love to connect with you guys and hear more from you. And yeah, more wealthy babes in my space, please. Dig this. Thank you. More, please.
Yay. Okay. Well, I'm definitely going to put all that in the show notes. So then you guys, if you missed it and you just want easy access to like where she is, you need to figure out how to spell her name, whatever the case is. I'm going to put it.
Super complicated.
I'd be like Celine Dion. You never know.
You're right. Oh, and I do have like inside of my free Facebook group too, I did a training on more of this exact topic, Reignited, 3 days to rekindling your relationship. So if you want more on that, it's totally free. Actually, at this point, don't even ask for your email address, which I probably should be doing. But,
you're abundant.
Wealthy babes just take messy action. So it's over in my Facebook group.
You're abundant.
I'm abundant.
So that's amazing. People need this training. People need you in their life. So I will put all that in the show notes. So oh my gosh, I want to thank you so much for coming on. Thank you so much for being my first interview. Thank you for sharing in this space with me and this vision with me and just holding, just like you've been celebrating with me this whole time. Every time I'm like, hey, I recorded another episode. I did this. You've been alongside me just celebrating the whole time. So I'm so grateful for you. And of course, thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for just, maybe taking notes and just sharing space and holding space and just, I mentioned it a lot is that there's so many spaces that you could be spreading your time and tuning in nowadays. There's Facebook Lives, there's a million podcasts. Like there are so many places you could be tuning in. So for you to be showing up here, it means the world to me and it means the world to Olivia. So thank you so much. I really hope that you enjoyed this juicy episode. make sure that you go and download the workbook for this series that I will leave in the show notes. I'm sure by this point you probably already have it, but maybe this was the first one that you jumped onto and you didn't go to the very first one, which is totally cool, but I want to make sure that you don't forget to go download it and find it. And of course, make sure to go rate and review, and please share. You know, you can take a little snapshot of it and put it on your stories on Instagram.
Yes.
Tag me, tag Olivia, so then we can share a message. I mean, this is a really important topic. This is something that can help a lot of women, and you are going to be able to help us to get this message out there. So I would appreciate that so freaking much. And other than that, you guys, we will see you in the next episode.
Bye, guys.
Bye.